Hi, how you doing? And welcome back to another video on the channel. Before we get started, just want to say a huge thank you for all the support on the latest wildcard video. If you've not seen it, go check it out. But we did actually get 3 new subscribers, a ton of likes, and a really positive comment. So thank you for that. It's always good to know that the videos are actually helping people and people are enjoying the content. So if you are new to the channel, please like and subscribe the video. All the support is greatly appreciated, especially as a small channel trying to grow. And let's get into it. So we start with a review of game week 14, and as we get my team on the screen here, we did pretty well defensively. 4 clean sheets out of 5 players there, and we also had Tarkowski on the bench. If I'd swapped him for Gomez, all my defensive players would have had clean sheets, which you would take any day of the week. In midfield, we have Mohamed Salah getting an attacking return, which is fantastic as captaincy. Anytime your captain returns, I just say, hey, you know what, I'll have that. And Saka managed to get an assist before he got taken off after 27 minutes with a slight injury. And Rashford got the only goal of his game as well. So that was a brilliant get in on a transfer a few weeks ago. The only problem is he's up front with Mitrovic and Toney not only returning but also getting booked. A bit of a nightmare, especially for Toney, because he, in terms of his own prospects for the World Cup, you would think he'd want to play against Nottingham Forest. I think he has Man City in the game week 16 before the World Cup. So he's missing out on that push for that final place in the squad. But it's also an absolute nightmare for us fantasy league owners. And we're going to talk about what to do with him later in the video. We've got a few options and we're going to discuss who we could potentially get in for him with players who are a similar price. So on to the fixtures, and for this game week, the obvious captaincy shout is Haaland from Man City, and I don't really think it's a risk to captain him. The injury he's got seems to be a knock on the foot, so it's not exactly a muscular injury where you could come on and test it out for 20 minutes. With like a knock on the foot, you're either good to play or you're not, and if you're not 100%, there's not really much point getting out there and playing for 10, 15 minutes because it's not going to strengthen it or it's not going to improve it really in any way. So I think you are safe captaining him um, because if he doesn't play, you want to have a solid vice captain. And I wouldn't look any further than Newcastle players at the moment. And we talked about it again in the wildcard video. Newcastle are absolutely the form team. Southampton are absolutely not the form team. When you have two teams like that playing each other, you definitely want to target players in the form team. And somebody like Callum Wilson, Almiron, or even Trippier, I think would be a fantastic vice captaincy shout. All Trippier needs is a clean sheet against Southampton, who aren't very good attacking, and he could get an assist, and you're up to about 20 points. And I just think, why not go for someone like that as your vice captain? If Haaland plays, I'm sure he'll return against Fulham, even if they're in reasonable form. So that would be my advice with that one. On to my team for this game week, and we start off with the defence. And I don't hate the double up in Crystal Palace defenders. West Ham, whilst they're creating chances, they're not necessarily converting them, and they are a team that I do think are quite wasteful. So that double Crystal Palace defence isn't bothering me. The triple up for Man City with Fulham at home isn't obvious, as well such as the captaincy with Haaland. And I do think players like Tarkowski and Rashford, they could also return. The plan was to get Mitrovic out of my team for the Man City and Man United games, but now we have to address the Ivan Toney problem. And we've got 3 players here. We're going to discuss 3 potential options that I think would be good in your teams. So we're going to start with Callum Wilson, and we've got some key stats on the screen in front of you there. Only 7.5 million. So he is actually the same price as Ivan Toney right now. Me personally, I got him in and I would lose zero point 0.2 million on him if I sold Ivan Toney because I got him in early. But to be honest, I've never really been that hung up on losing money. My team value is rubbish anyway, so that doesn't really matter. But fantasy league is all about getting players in that you think are going to score well now, and you can't be afraid of losing zero point 0.2 million of your team value, especially if you've made profit on him already. If I got him in at 7 million, well, I've made 0.3 million anyway. So you've got to look at it in a positive way because you're restricting yourself. And if he's not going to play, then that value doesn't matter anyway. It's irrelevant in my eyes. Anyway, so we're looking at Callum Wilson, and he's about 10% owned. And with the recent form, what we have there is some good returns in the last couple of game weeks. Really, since he's come back from injury, he's had 5 attacking returns in 6 games, which is pretty good all round. And he is starting, especially now Isak's out of the picture in terms of injury. He's guaranteed minutes, and he's someone that's motivated to play well. We said in our wildcard video, there's a difference between players guaranteed to go to the World Cup, like Foden, who maybe get rested and maybe haven't got the underlying oomph in their performance because they're worried about injury. And you've got players like Callum Wilson who aren't on the plane yet, who are desperate to make a push, who are super motivated, and there's a huge swing really in the intangibles for that. His fixtures look pretty good. That Southampton fixture we've talked about already. I think that's a fantastic fixture for Newcastle, and even Chelsea at home. Chelsea are a little bit all over the place, especially after that Brighton result. So I do think Callum Wilson is a fantastic replacement for Ivan Toney. Next up, we've got Calvert-Lewin. He's a bit more expensive at 7.9, but what a huge differential at 0.8% ownership. The problem you've got is he's coming off injury, but unlike Callum Wilson, he's not had that much time to settle in, although 90 minutes against Fulham in the most recent game is promising, and he did score against Crystal Palace. The two fixtures he's got, Leicester at home and Bournemouth away, are pretty good fixtures. I think if that was the other way around, I'd be a bit more concerned. If he was sort of going away to Leicester, I'd maybe think that would be a bit tougher. But Leicester at home, whilst they've turned it around recently in terms of form, they're still towards the end of the table, and you never really know what you're going to get from them. So if you're thinking of a bit of a riskier pick for a big differential, I'd say Calvert Lewin would probably be your guy. Like Callum Wilson, he's desperate to get on that plane for the World Cup, so you won't find many players more motivated. Third and finally, we've got Gabriel Jesus. So he is somebody that you're looking at if you want more of a sure thing, I guess. Someone that's playing it for a team that are high up the table, and he's shown over the course of the season that he can give attacking returns. You know, 11 attacking returns in 14 game weeks is pretty consistent, and even though he's not been scoring recently, he has still got 3 assists in his last 4 games, so he is super involved in the attack, and I'm sure on another game, he could have finished a couple of chances a bit better. Problem we have is both fixtures are away from home, and again, in the wildcard video, we discussed the importance of targeting teams that are playing at home because it just does make a difference. Chelsea away is a different proposition than Chelsea at home, and to me, it's a little bit iffy. But if you do want to get him in for that, there are worse fixtures than that, and Wolves away is a fantastic fixture for Arsenal, and one you think they could score 3 or 4 goals in. So, to me, I'm leaning towards Callum Wilson. I think he is the player that is in the best form. He is also the cheapest, and he's still, 10% is pretty low ownership. So, getting him in and putting a vice captaincy on him, I think is a pretty good idea. But I also don't hate the Calvert-Lewin pick as well. If you're feeling a bit risky and you're just thinking, you know what, it's a bit of a free hit for me. I've got an extra transfer that I want to use and hope for the best. I think that would be a good idea. But let me know what you think. Is there anyone I've missed? And are there any other changes I could potentially make for my team? Let me know in the comments. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe or like the video. Thanks again for watching. Good luck in your game week, and I will see you in the next one.